listeners, you found Sanctuary's Coffee and Conversation Show. My name is Myrna Haskell. I'm executive editor of Sanctuary Magazine. This is an online publication for women that empowers and inspires with a focus on the arts, humanitarian pursuits, health and wellness, inspirational travel, career, finance, and culture and community. You can find us at sanctuary-magazine.com. This morning, my guest is Deborah Cole. She is a writer, a speaker, a visual storyteller, a former business owner, and the author of She Believed She Could, So She Did, which is a book currently excerpted in our August edition. So if you haven't seen our August issue, you can find Deborah's book there. Thank you so much for joining me this morning. Welcome.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. So much fun.
Yes, and I'm so glad we're talking about women leaders because it's a part of what we do almost every month. But in particular today, we're going to talk about the profile of women leaders and entrepreneurs. And I know that you, Deborah, have interviewed dozens of women. You've mentored women business leaders. So let's start out about talking about what you see as common characteristics for women executives and entrepreneurs.
I will even extend that. I think those characteristics extend across all women in all roles. And the more I interview women, whether they're entrepreneurs, executives, small business owners, or working out of their home, doing something that sometimes is considered very small. Some of the characteristics are just the same. There's resilience is one, the ability to juggle many things, staying calm and cool in crisis situations.
Oh, yes.
Empathy, considering their team. And I'm not talking about putting themselves in the back seat always. Women, executives, entrepreneurs, all women work very hard at taking care of themselves. And if they're not taking care of themselves, they're working on taking care of themselves.
And that's something I think a lot of our readers struggle with because we always talk about just work-life balance even, right? And women looking to take care of others first before they take care of themselves. But I think I'm hearing you say, if you're in a leadership position like this and you're not caring for self first, other things are going to start to suffer, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the more we work toward that as leaders and entrepreneurs, I think the more we work toward that, the more we realize how important it is and that it's not selfish. I've heard so many women say, well, I can't do that because I've got to take care of this person first, or my customers first, my employees first. It's really ourselves first, getting our own houses in order. And I don't mean that literally, but getting our own personal houses in order and taking care of ourselves and looking toward asking for what we want, asking for what we need.
Right. And I think I heard teamwork in there somewhere, resilience, being able to juggle a lot of things at once. I'm wondering if you feel this way about it, but I think that's a natural thing for a lot of women, multitasking, and also a natural thing, the empathy piece and the respect toward team. So I'm wondering if you want to just say a little bit more about those two things.
Sure. As far as empathy and teamwork, I mean, so many studies have been done showing not only that women leaders time and time again, I won't say put their teams first, but their teams are always first and foremost in consideration when decisions are being made, when whether it's company decisions or hiring decisions, the others are always included in conversations. Women find it very natural to ask for opinions at a table, at people that have a seat at the table. All of the opinions are considered. So that collaboration is collaboration. And it's not to say that women give up their power, but women and I'm generalizing here, but I find this a lot, that women tend to want to hear from everyone else because they know that diversity in the boardroom, diversity on a team really makes for more powerful decisions.
It does. And I think when, you know, those underneath the leader are part of the team and understand that even if their idea isn't the bottom line in the end, that they've been heard and that their idea has been considered, it's a respect thing, and you're going to get more out of your employees. If you respect them, you'll get respect back, right? So it's a win-win, really.
Oh, absolutely. And again, statistics from Harvard Business Review, Pew Research show that women tend to collaborate as leaders, whether they're CEOs or on the executive team. Collaboration is part of what they do. So what that means is there's a diverse group of people in the decision making. The decisions end up being better and benefiting the company financially, in retention. I mean, throughout all the metrics. So we
can all get stuck in our ways too, right? Used to doing things a certain way. And so when you get all those different perspectives, it kind of shoots you out of that. I mean, I found that running the magazine, we get a new writer on, or, you know, I haven't spoken maybe to a co-associate editor for a while, and then all of a sudden she has these great ideas that I might never have thought of. I mean, I think it's a refreshing thing, literally and figuratively, when you're listening to many voices, don't you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what's so important is having the voices, not just having a seat at the table. I mean, women always have asked in one way or another, or yearned for, maybe not asked even, but yearned for a seat at the table. But it's also being heard, not just being a figure
at the table. Yes, I hear you, Deborah.
We've got a woman now, or we've got a Black woman now. We've got.
You don't want them just checking the box. You want it to be real, inclusive.
No, because people love data, and just looking at the data. When women are brought into leadership, how the companies improve and excel. It's simple.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to dig in a little bit to the challenges specifically for women, because of course we're decades after the original push for the women's liberation movement, right? But women are still, you know, seeking good pay, equal pay, all of that in various industries. And so if we can talk just a little bit about some of the challenges that are still out there, and perhaps maybe you have some ideas about how women can overcome those.
The first part's easier than the second part.
Yes.
Because in writing the book and interviewing the women, plus doing talks to women's groups, the stories still come. I mean, I've heard people say, well, aren't we beyond that? I mean, haven't laws been passed to prevent that? Yes, women can get credit now in their name. They can get a loan in their name. They can buy property in their name. Aren't we past all that? Well, we're not, because although there have been a lot of great laws that have been passed to prevent overt discrimination, there's still a lot of implicit bias when people, all of it, every one of us have biases, and we've just got to come clean with that. We all have biases, but there's still biases against, I won't say against women, considering women. If there's a position open and there's a man up for the position and a woman up for the position, if the decision makers are predominantly men, they typically choose a man. And that still happens. So those stories still go on. Women not being taken seriously in their roles. Yes, gave a talk 2 weeks ago where women were telling stories after the talk about, yes, I'm in a management position, but clients still ask in one way or another, when is the boss coming? When is the supervisor coming? When is the manager coming? And all the time it's the woman. And so,
you know, can I piggyback on that a little bit in terms of, I think when I'm hearing some of the things you're saying, what about the piece from the woman's angle? I've had some of these talks and articles in the magazine that have talked about how women less frequently strive to put themselves out there and talk about their strengths and really go for that executive position, they tend to look at the skills involved and maybe think, oh, I only have like 70% of those. Maybe I'm not ready for the job. Where a man might like think, oh, I have 2 or 3, so I'm going for it.
Good.
Have you seen any of that? I kind of wanted to just tweak that a bit.
I haven't had anybody specifically say that happened to them or they were in that situation. In fact, a little bit just the opposite. I'm hearing younger women. And when I say younger, a lot of women are younger than me, but younger.
Me too.
But in the high school, college, post-college, they're much more confident now. And just yesterday, somebody said, I'm going to apply for this position. It's a tenure track at a university. I don't quite have my PhD yet, but I'd be good for this role.
I like to hear that. That's great.
The younger women, and you'll have to forgive me. I'm really generalizing here.
Yes, I understand that.
Everything,
of course,
I'm generalizing, but I'm seeing that, and I love the enthusiasm of younger women that I interview or women that come to my talks, and it's just, the future is really bright. So those of us that are more mature need to take a lesson from those girls.
Yes, and I'm so glad you brought that up because, of course, August is our special issue, Focus on Youth. So readers and my team have had youth in mind all month long. So that's great. I wanted to dig in a little bit to, and this goes for men and women a lot, sure, this question, but how important is it to recognize your weaknesses as a business leader or executive? We all know some of those people who, it's a good thing to feel confident and to be confident about your decision making and to be able to make decisions and not be wishy-washy. So I'm not talking about that, but to recognize, what, I don't do this so great. This team member does it better, or whatever it is. So I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about that.
Sure. And I totally agree. I think a bit of humility goes a long way. Recognizing that we don't know everything. And so 2 things. One is saying, that here's a skill set that, for example, women that are looking to get on board seats, they're looking for board seats. A lot of times they don't have the financial background. They don't have the P&L experience. And so recognizing, it's one thing. It's not that they're bad at, it's just one thing that hasn't been, I've been working in human resources or people management, and that hasn't been part of my talents yet. So what am I going to do? What do I need to do to get there? And it's recognizing we're not perfect at everything, and there are many things that we can improve upon. So it's that constant curiosity. How can I improve myself? That's one thing. Or in a leadership position, I realized when I was in business, I needed to be hiring people that could do things I couldn't do.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, isn't it?
Gosh.
That giving up some of that micromanage thing that maybe you have in the back of your mind, you're afraid to give up the control, right?
Absolutely. Well, I was great at running and operating a small company, but once we got to be big, a multi-million-dollar company in operations wasn't my skill set. And so I hired the best operations people I could find, and we just blew it out of the water. And when I say we, it was me supporting them.
You know what? Can I hear just a little bit more about that? Because I know that you had a successful business. Was there a specific challenge you want to share when you went from a smaller company? Did it all of a sudden mushroom into a large company? And, did that freak you out at all or cause other problems? Careful what you wish for kind of thing. All of a sudden you're getting all of these, correspondences, and you don't have a large enough team to handle whatever it is. If you want to say anything about that to help those out there who maybe are about to go through the same thing or just have.
Well, so I was the founder and the owner of a business, but the same thing could be said of someone in a leadership role in upper management. You get there and the nights of wondering, oh my gosh, how are we going to make payroll, go to, oh my gosh, how are we going to handle this multi-million-dollar project?
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, we did it. All of the things, and it never stopped. So it went from worrying about the small stuff to worrying about the big stuff. And when I say worry, for me, worry was a motivator. I didn't stew over things. It was, okay, I don't know how to do that. How can I do that? Or who do I need to find? Or what infrastructure do I need to provide? It's always being curious, always planning for the future. But the worrying never stopped. But it got to be fun kind of worrying. Oh my goodness.
I just had to hit the ground running, it sounds like, well, here it is. This is what I wanted. Now I got to do it like that.
We've been working for this big contract and now we've got it. And now what?
Yeah.
So it's just constantly sharpening the saw, constantly looking for things. And there's always something positive about everything. I'm not a Pollyanna, but there's always something good about everything.
You can find the positive in it. Well, that's a good outlook in general on life, right? Not just business.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to be doom and gloom about things or let a mistake or something bad that happened to you just completely drag you down, you'll never grow and you'll be miserable, right? So.
Oh, well, life is fun.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea is to be fun and to share the fun.
That's a great attitude, Deborah. So let's talk a little bit about, so I had mentioned, and now you're explaining some of it, that you were a former business owner with a very successful company. So I know you're doing some mentoring now. So I thought what inspired you to be a mentor to other women? And I thought you might want to talk about that a little bit.
What inspired me was the thought that so let me back up. When I left my company, I actually sold it to the employees. We became an ESOP, became an employee-owned company. So I did that, and then I stayed on for 8 years to make sure that was all smooth. And when I left, I thought, I want to take time for me now. Number one, do only the things that I want to do, which is writing, photography, and public speaking. And then I thought, how can I use these for the good? How can I use these to continue to support? Because what I'd always wanted to do was support people, inspire them, bring them up through the company so that they could be all they could be. And I thought, how could I do that now that I don't have any people working for me?
Okay.
And so I reached out to 2 organizations that I had belonged to that had women's groups within them. And I said, I'd like to provide mentorship. I'd like to provide support. And then on the side, one of the things I started doing was writing either short articles or books on women to support them, because women don't get heard a lot. Small business women don't get heard a lot. People don't know their stories. So I wanted to be sure they had a voice in the public. So what inspired me was other women. And the more I dug in, the more I was just blown away by the 40% of the businesses in the United States are owned by women.
Yeah, and that's been true. There's been this huge increase, right, over the last 10 years or so of small business owners who are women.
Yes.
Yeah.
That number blew me away. And I thought, but they're not out there beating their chests and telling their stories. And so I thought that, some women they would like and support me telling their stories. Some women say, no, I just want to do my business. I want to take care of my employees, take care of my family, and do that. Well, how can I support you? Well, we could have phone calls. We could meet one-on-one for coffee. You could talk when you have a problem that comes up and you need somebody to run things by. You can talk, because it's lonely at the top
Yes.
as a small business
There's
owner.
a reason everyone says that, right? Yes.
Who do you talk to
Right.
when things aren't going right? Who do you talk to when things are going beautifully?
That's right. That's right. Well, just to remind listeners, I mentioned in the beginning, your book is excerpted currently in this issue. So I thought you might like to talk a little bit more about She, but a little birdie told me earlier that you also have another book coming out early next year. So let's dig into that a little bit so that listeners know what they're going to get there.
Okay. Well, I love writing, and I love photography, and I love talking to people. So this was it was the trifecta of a project that I could do. So during the pandemic, I thought, okay, how can I use the talents that I have to support women? And so the idea was, well, rather than writing just short stories or articles, I'll interview. I started out thinking I'll interview 50 women, and it ended up being 35 women entrepreneurs within my state of Texas, because I wanted to be able to get to them. Again, it was during the pandemic, so we had to be careful about all the contact, but I wanted to go to them to spend as much time as they would allow interviewing them, hearing their story, and photographing them in their place of business, if possible. Some people, of course, were working from home at that point. So it was awesome. I mean, it was one woman in particular said that when her husband read her story, she said he cried because he never realized what she had gone through starting her business.
My goodness.
And so women, I mean, we just do it. We just get the job done. We don't go, I mean, and I'm men too. This is not anti-men. It's women just get the job done.
Yes.
And so what turned into, I promised everybody, is that I will only take an hour of your time for the interview and an hour of your time for the photography. One woman I stayed with for 6 hours.
Oh, I believe it. Because that's the favorite part of my job too, is interviewing all these fabulous women artists and business leaders and nonprofit founders, and people like you on this show. I mean, I think we have an energy that we pull from each other too, so it's fun, right?
Well, it is fun. And so you know exactly what I'm talking about. I feel like I gained a lot after hearing their stories. I felt it was a real privilege to be the recipient of their stories, because they talked about the business side. I didn't want to know about their financials. I didn't want to know any of that. So I wanted to know about them.
Yes.
What motivated you? What did it feel like? What do you go through? Is it hard? What are your ups? What are your downs? And
you interviewed a person, I think you had told me, who started her business at the age of 22, right? Because just with Focus and Youth on Mind again,
yes.
This month with our special issue. How great is that? I mean, I've also interviewed some of these young women who have started nonprofits, in their late teens and early 20s. And boy, do they have to have some chutzpah and some stick-to-itiveness, I guess I want to say, to do that at such a young age, right? Do you want to say anything about her, and then just briefly about this new book coming out, because we just talked about sharing that in Sanctuary as well early next year. So
sure, you bet. So I wanted to have a wide range of ages and a range of ethnicities. I wanted, every woman I could think of. And so I looked at the Kendra Scott Entrepreneurship Group is within the University of Texas.
okay.
And so I went to find a woman there that was in that entrepreneurship organization. And I found a woman who at the time was a sophomore, an engineering student, bright, honors engineering. It was her third business she'd started.
Wow.
Now, the good news is, and you probably found this out too, that in high schools now there are entrepreneurship programs, and in universities there are entrepreneurship programs. That didn't happen when I was in school.
No. No, not for me
No,
either. Yes,
I mean,
that's terrific that they're doing that. But it
oh
sounds
my,
like this particular young lady sort of came out of the womb with the entrepreneur hat on.
she did.
She's started
She
3 already.
she had one in high school, one earlier in college, and this one she started during the pandemic. She and a friend said they realized with the university shut down that college students were feeling anxiety and depression from not connecting. And there's studies that show that, yes, the younger generation, even more so, even though they're technologically connected, they're not connected one-on-one. The older people tended to do better. So what she did was she and a friend built a platform that connected college students and seniors, not seniors in college, but senior age. We'll just say 50 or over, connected them in a way. It was almost like Match.com.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's terrific.
and at the time I interviewed her, she'd had lots of press around it, and there was a big national organization wanting to buy it.
Oh, wow. That's wonderful. What about this new project, this new book that's going to be out? Do you want to say, you don't have to like spill all the beans, but do you want to tweak listeners a little bit about what's happening with that?
You bet. Well, once I did this, I was working on the She Believed She Could, So She Did book. I interviewed a woman who was the CEO of an organization called Black Women in Business. And she said, "Ooh, I want you to do this. I'd like you to do this book for my organization."
Okay.
And I said, "Once this book gets finished, we'll talk." So we did talk, we stayed in touch. And so I started, she had a very short timeline. So yeah, so I interviewed 21 of her members of Black Women in Business, mostly in Texas, and photographed them. And so their book will come out January 1st. There's a soft launch in November, but I asked her name's Rose Smith. I asked her to be a co-author because
Okay.
I'm a white woman. I cannot.
Yeah, to get her perspective in all of this. Absolutely.
And I can't identify, although I interviewed all the women. It was a great experience. They're pretty amazing.
That's wonderful. Well, just to remind listeners, please check out Deborah's book. It's fabulous. I've been paging through and reading about some of the phenomenal women. Thank you so much for being on with me today. This was such a fun subject, and I know that there are many people out there who are thinking about, starting a business who can listen to this and pick up some great tips. So I really thank you for that today, Deborah. I'll close as I always do by wishing all of our listeners and our readers good health, happiness, and continued inspiration. Thank you so much for joining us.